What do people in the world know about what children are really feeling and thinking and how they can express it? I found out in many countries, and including our own, a sort of idea that children forget, that they can't remember very well. And I remember particularly one little boy. Each of them told us that my mummy's feet swelled up and then she died. And they were crying. One little boy said, I can't eat without thinking of my Father in heaven looking down at me. It was so harrowing what they were telling us. So that really began my sort of, if you like, crusade about listening to children and trying to encourage our staff in all projects to sit down and listen to children. When I think of child protection, I don't really think of child protection. I think of an integrated approach between child development and child rights. Child rights wouldn't exist without our knowledge of child development. I've often wondered how much more research we need in various countries about people's understanding of how children develop. One little example is, when do children realize that death is a reality? I think it gradually grows, but there is a point where, I think sometime between 5 and 6 maybe. I remember very clearly being reminded of that in Zimbabwe with Mozambican refugees. There was this little girl who was placed with her aunt. Her mother had died. And her aunt came to our staff and said, she keeps running away from me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I said, well, where is she going? So we were taken to the place where she went. And that was the place where her mother had been placed because she was dying of cholera. And what she was doing, she was going there to wait for her mother to come back. We have gone through the PTSD era. It's a useful, very useful concept in our part of the world to understand trauma. But of course, I think as several of us must have recognized and seen, it's a bit of a dicey thing in cultures which don't really have that understanding. When we were doing the evaluation of the Gusco project in northern Uganda, I asked the staff to tell me about the words they used for sorrow and shock language in their own language. There was wi obale, which means the mind is spoiled. And one had to be very careful promoting PTSD ideas, because the idea of somebody being mad, as we all know, has huge implications for that person. They're not allowed to own land. They're not allowed to marry. They're quite ostracized in the community. I think it's very, very important to examine these words to describe the deep distress of people and the sorrow of people. One thing which I think was neglected in all the issue of trauma children have after losing parents, for want of a better word, I call it secondary distress, if you like. And that is so hidden. Let me give you an example of that. A wee girl in Sri Lanka who had lost her father and her mother was staying with her aunt, and her aunt could not afford a school uniform for her, which was important there. When she went to school, she was placed in a chair, sort of at the corner of the classroom, because she did not have a school uniform. I think we've all seen that. That's what you get when you talk and listen to children, the humiliation, the isolation, the blaming. One little boy, again in Sri Lanka, his mother was in terrible despair because she had lost her husband and felt that life was not worth living. And she'd sent her little boy to buy fluid she could commit suicide with. The little boy had no idea of this, of course. And she took this and she died. And he was blamed for doing this by the family. Now all this sort of thing only comes to the surface when we are talking and listening to children. That sparked off a large teacher seminar which we held, sort of, examining these things with teachers. We asked teachers, do you know how many children in your class have lost parents? No. This kind of awareness creating, I think, is at the centre of all child protection, child development. One of the things which really has struck me throughout all the work with unaccompanied children is how they lose status, and how much, when you're talking to them, how much they are aware of this. And talking to children placed with relatives, they have a hierarchy of who they want to be placed with. And we found that in several countries that the preferred person was the maternal aunt. They talked about the subtle ways of discrimination between them and the biological children. It's very difficult to find the answer to how this can be rectified, but it is definitely, nevertheless, a much better procedure than institutionalization. We did an island-wide study in Sri Lanka where we Dept interviewed 10 children in each of these places. It was very harrowing. One of the issues was the dangerous idea that there's an institution for boys and an institution for girls, which almost guarantees the separation of siblings, and never do the twain to meet again. We found that the widows program in Sri Lanka, which we had for many years actually going on, giving small loans, and they formed groups to organize this, that allowed them to keep their children at home. There were several times when we heard from children in the institutions that they had gone there with mummy to see this nice lady and have tea with her, and that's the last time they saw mummy. It's very difficult to know how we're going to more tackle the institution, the issue of institutionalization of children. It's still a very important question to work further on. But I feel if children's voices could be heard more strongly, who have been institutionalized, if that could come forward more strongly, maybe that would be something which could change practices. I don't know. We'll see. So in my latter years in Red Barna, I developed something called key quality elements, because a quality issue is expressed by to what degree the program met the requirements of child rights and child development. So you needed to have an integrated understanding about what that was all about. When moving into the community in northern Uganda to talk about this, because we always try to also, of course, involve community, it was easy to do that when sitting with the community, the villagers around us, talking about this, because this was also about the integration of the children coming back from LRA. What is quality? And I said, if you're going out to buy a cow and a goat, you're looking for quality. Yes, everybody agreed on that. Now, what would you look for? So then we could hop over to then what would be qualities in this program of reintegrating the children. And from that came so many good suggestions, many of which we hadn't really thought of. One of the really challenging issues in reintegration of children associated with armed forces, as you know, is the issue of girls, of course. Girls coming back with babies, girls coming back with HIV. It was really as strange as we know. They had gained some status, being the wives of commanders and so on and so forth. It was very, very difficult for them to sort of go back to being just somebody's daughter again. They had lost their value. Nobody would pay a bride price. That really meant we had to take a long-term perspective in this type of integration, at the same time protecting girls from being further abused. I've written a compilation of the work we have done in Gusco called Crossing Bridges. It's a kind of progressive monitoring and evaluation document. Be relevant, I think, to other situations where children are involved in armed forces. One of the most challenging things, I think, Cornelius, was in Sierra Leone, where there was a combination of not only recruitment but also children were given drugs and alcohol. And of course, when they came back, there was nothing in the country which dealt with rehabilitation after drugs. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's great. And,
That's all I can say at the moment.